Hi, I'm Ashlyn.
I'm Julia.
And I'm Juliana. When we first began the story map, we wanted to tell Kellam's story, beginning with the old building, which represents VBCPS's evolution of ideology of buildings' impacts on our watershed. In the past 100 years, the growth of urban development led to an increase in impermeable surfaces. Rainwater that would normally soak into the ground turned into stormwater runoff, carrying pollutants into our watershed. Due to this long stretch of Virginia Beach, it is now impaired and threatened by stormwater. More than half of Old Kellam's property was impermeable surfaces, making it so pollution from Old Kellam would leave the property and enter our waterways through surface runoff.
On January 27th, 2014, the new Kellam High School opened its doors. We are a LEED certified building, and we boast many rainwater harvesting techniques and a green roof and a bamboo gym floor and much more. We have 9 rain cisterns that irrigate our sports fields. We have a 36.94 acre forest, and to calculate the gallons of stormwater and pounds of CO2 the forest can sequester, because we have a 36.94 acre forest and the online tree carbon calculators only calculate per tree, we found the diameter at breast height of a random sample of 20 by 20 square section of Kellam's forest. We used that as our average density and species type and repeated that all over Kellam's forested acres. That's how we got to these calculations. We also have bioswales and infiltration chambers underneath our parking lots that infiltrate into the groundwater, and an infiltration garden within our school. 71.7% of our 108 acre school property is permeable. In this map, you can click and see which areas are non-permeable and which are permeable. Even with the immense amount of stormwater management here at Kellam, pollutants from our site still manage to make it into our waterways.
After contacting the landscaping company for Kellam, we discovered that they do not use fertilizers or pesticides, but they do spray Roundup on the cracks of concrete where small weeds grow. Roundup is a broad-spectrum glyphosate-based herbicide, meaning it kills any plant it comes into contact with unless the plant has been modified. Glyphosate is water-soluble, but it binds tightly to certain types of soil, like soil with high amounts of clay, just like the soil we have at Kellam. Many microorganisms can feed upon glyphosate once in the soil, like fungi, but microorganisms that cause disease in fungi have been shown to decrease in soils with glyphosate, potentially altering the ecosystem and soil health. Due to glyphosate binding to clay particles, these effects may be felt for the long term. Despite binding to clay particles, Roundup may still end up in our groundwater. When sprayed on concrete and paved surfaces, it allows it to enter stormwater runoff easily, as it is not bound to soil. With our retention ponds, Kellam has become a home to many species of bird, especially geese. One goose can create 2 pounds of droppings a day. That is 730 pounds of droppings a year for one goose. Geese live in gaggles, which can contain up to 100 geese. When goose and other animal droppings enter our waterways, it adds dangerous bacteria as well as phosphorus and nitrogen. The increase of CO2 in the recent years has led to stream river acidification. When more CO2 is released into the atmosphere, the plants in freshwater areas absorb CO2. The plants grow larger, and when they die and decompose, they release more carbon. This extra carbon is washed off into the water by rain and stormwater runoff. Eventually, this acidity will be carried to our watershed. Kellam High School has roughly 800 parking spots. On average, one car will emit 6 tons of carbon in 1 year. If the parking lot were full, that would be 4,800 tons or 9.6 million pounds.
And this is our watershed. Here you can see Kellam and the stormwater drains and stormwater pipes we have within Kellam. And you can click and see that our water from Floyd E. Kellam High School travels to West Neck Creek. If you zoom out, you can see West Neck Creek right over here. So all the water that drains from Kellam will go to West Neck Creek and eventually ends up in the Albemarle Pamlico Sound. When pollutants from Kellam travel down West Neck Creek and enter the southern watershed, it has disastrous effects. Herbicides like Roundup can be toxic to amphibians and can create substantial amphibian mortality and disrupt aquatic microorganisms' growth. These microorganisms are essential to the health of waterways because they are the basis of many food chains. Effects have also been seen higher up on food chains and by increasing disease in fish. Animal droppings and fertilizers lead to an increase in nitrogen and phosphorus, which can lead to eutrophication. Eutrophication is the abundance of nutrients in the water, causing high growths of algae, which block the sunlight and kill off plants within waterways. Bacteria eat the dead plants, using up the remaining dissolved oxygen and killing aquatic life, creating dead zones. Extra CO2 makes the water more acidic, which hinders calcifying organisms' ability to create their shells and can dissolve existing shells.
Stormwater management techniques can always be improved upon to make Kellam and our region better. Although Kellam has wonderful techniques, many students are not aware of them. Making students aware of the techniques will change how they see Kellam and positively impact the community. We believe the proposal for a better future should have 2 steps. 1, changing the culture and education around stormwater management, and 2, changing and improving Kellam's negative impacts. Implementing a stormwater art installation would be the first step to gathering visibility and educating the students about stormwater management. Installing a sculpture that has stormwater capabilities would capture the attention of many students within Kellam, just like this middle school that is pictured below has. Along with this sculpture, we would implement educational signs along the courtyard to educate the students. Using these education techniques would hopefully make students understand better how their actions impact the region. Having each class leave Kellam better than we found it by implicating possibilities such as having graduating class plant a tree within the Kellam forest, which would foster ownership and pride within each class, increasing the amount of CO2 and stormwater the forest absorbs. Change needs to happen with not only the students, but from the school as well. We need to stop using Roundup and use better and environmentally conscious techniques to solve the unwanted plant issue. As we cannot stop geese from releasing their waste, we must find ways to mitigate the issues created by this waste. We can increase the number of native plants to absorb pollutants. Changing the culture around stormwater will create student advocates to push Kellam High School to be the best it can be.
Ms. Barbara Henley, a lifetime resident of Virginia Beach, has been a huge advocate for the environmental preservation of Southern Virginia Beach and our southern watershed. We're using the story map to help Ms. Henley tell the story of the southern watershed. By improving Kellam is one step towards helping Ms. Henley, but we can't stop there. Applying what we use at Kellam for other schools, homes, and business will help achieve Ms. Henley's goal of protecting the waterways we hold dear.
Hopefully, Mrs. Henley's sharing of our story of Kellam will push citizens of Virginia Beach to improve their stormwater management, to improve the future of this beautiful region. Thank you for reading this.